Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of SUGTalks. I'm Craig Dale, your host, and together with our special guest we'll take a deep dive into the topics, challenges and opportunities facing SAP users today. Please make sure you do hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our future episodes. I'm delighted to be joined once again today by Simon Nichols, CEO of Thrive. Welcome back, Simon.
Thank you for having me, Craig.
Always a pleasure, my friend. And in today's mentally health-focused episode, we'll be exploring the role of emotional intelligence in the workplace and how it can improve communication, reduce stress, and foster a more supportive environment. And just before we get into that, just like to ask you, Simon, what's the strangest or most unique thing you've learned in the past year?
The strangest or most unique thing that I have learned in the past year.
I'm struggling with this one, I've got to say it. And I'm going to reflect back to I've now, at the end of last year, I became an electric car driver. And it's not unique, it's probably not strange to other electric car drivers, but what I've learned is the amount of planning going into long journeys increases tenfold in an electric vehicle. And also, the temperature of Mother Nature, shall we say, also has a huge impact. I had a drive down to Stratford-upon-Avon from Teesside, and it was about -5 when I was setting off, and it knocked about 20 to 30% off the battery mileage life. And my car saying, "You're going to need to charge," and I'm like, "No, I've done this journey before and it was fine." I needed to charge. And the car was right, I was wrong. But yeah, that's what I've learned. Planning is very important.
Planning is key. I mean, we could go into PPP, but no, we don't do any swearing on this podcast. While you were talking, what was going through my head, the obvious answer is I've learned that there exists such a thing as a Parmo. Yeah. Which is a Middlesbrough delicacy, and if anyone's never experienced a Parmo, you haven't lived. That was what the information was instilled to me, and I'm going to be instilling that information to as many people as possible. But that's an easy answer, Craig. I think for me, moving into a rural location and inheriting things, what I've learned this year is that fish in outdoor ponds do not need feeding over the winter. They go down to the bottom, they hibernate effectively, and they do different things with their food. I've also learned how an air source pump works. Well, I haven't. I understand that an air source pump works, and it helps to generate electricity in my house. But the inner mechanics of it, I don't really know. But I now understand that I have to pay slightly less for my electric than I did before. But yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm an expert on air source heat pumps, but I've got one now, and I've had to have a bit of a learning curve on exactly what one is. So those are my three answers to your question.
Fantastic. So there's a whole load of learning that's gone on. The Parmo one, yep, anybody that comes up to Teesside, you've got to try the Parmo. Although I would suggest you get a small portion, because if you get the full portion, it's about the size of an LP. Although, how many of our listeners will understand what an LP is, I don't know. But there we go. There's one for the older generation. Right, let's move swiftly on. Okay, Simon, emotional intelligence. Why is it important to the workplace and life in general?
I think in order to answer that, we've got to look at what emotional intelligence actually is. And at the base level, emotional intelligence is insights. It's an insight into yourself, as well as insights into other people. And when we're talking about insights, we're talking, the clue is in the question, it's about insights into emotions. So why should I care, or care's the wrong word, but maybe why should I understand other people's emotional responses to certain situations? So when we think about emotional intelligence as an insight element, the core components really are, well, two are very much internal. One is that self awareness. So, am I aware of my of what emotions are going on inside my head? Am I aware of why I have those emotions? Once I understand what those emotions are doing to me, I can then self manage them. So I can look internally, I can see why I'm having a certain emotion, why I'm angry, why I'm sad, and then I can manage that emotion. Unchecked emotions, as we know, lead to anger, lead to overwhelm, lead to all sorts of heightened stress levels. But it's also then the other two core components are social awareness, i.e., am I aware of all of the things that's going around me? More importantly, am I aware of the things that are going on with other people? And then actually, how do I interact? So we're talking about relationship management. So I can understand what's going on in me, potentially. We might not be able to understand it, but I'm aware of it. I'm self aware. I'm able to manage it. I'm able to control potentially some of those emotional states. But then I can actually impart that or understand why other people are going through those emotional states. And maybe I can help the relationship that I'm having with those other people as well. So it's very much about awareness within internally, but also awareness and management with other people as well.
Oh, fantastic! And it just while you were speaking there, it reminded me of a book I've just downloaded, which is next in my library to review. Called, I think it's by Mel Robbins, called "Let Them," the "Let Them" theory. And that thing, I'm in a traffic jam. And then I've left gap between me and the car in front, and we're just going along, and then all of a sudden someone cuts in. So rather than blowing my top, rather than getting frustrated, angry, and increasing my heart rate and all my internal emotions, let them. And so I have downloaded that, ready to listen to, and I think that's a theory of, understanding your own emotions and controlling them. And just back and moving on from what you said there, how big a part does empathy play in emotional intelligence?
Well, I'd like to talk about empathy in a moment, but what you've just described there is that what you're building up at that point. When you let someone else in front of you, because that's such an important element, and I've adopted this over the years. What we're talking about is resilience. We're talking about resilience, but we're also talking about a level of perseverance. So what you've done there by letting that person in, and I do it all the time. I am now one of the most considerate drivers I imagine on the road, because I have learnt to persevere with the knowledge that someone else is going to do something. And what I learned, or what I've persevered in that thought process, is that I don't know what that person is going through. That person has just has cut me up. He's pulled in, done a dangerous overtaking maneuver. What's going on in that person's life? Why have they chosen to do that? It could be they're just an inconsiderate driver, or it could be that they've got a partner at hospital. Their child's just been taken ill at school. Why are they? Why are they doing that thing? And then I think it's cost me a couple of seconds. It's cost me a minute. Okay, I've just had an extra minute. I've got a bonus minute. Well, I'm not driving. I can think about something differently. So really, when we're thinking, and you'll hear today, you'll hear the words resilience, you'll hear the words perseverance, but you'll also hear the word confidence as well. I'm confident in myself that I can let these people pull in, and they're not going to have that impact on me. And that leads us nicely into that level of empathy, because again, empathy. What is empathy? When we think of the difference between empathy and sympathy, so the sympathy level is you've hurt your leg, Craig, and I go, oh, sorry you hurt your leg, Craig. I'm not sorry necessarily. I'm sorry for the act of you hurting your leg, but I don't feel anything else. I'm paying lip service to your leg. Empathy is effectively, oh my God, that must be really, really impactful for you. I'm so sorry to hear that. You must be in a lot of pain. You must be finding things difficult right now. You don't have to have a bad leg to feel with someone or have that level of empathy. And the higher your, if it's like, I mean, again, we're talking emotional intelligence. It's shortened to EQ. So if you think of the same thing as IQ, eye intelligence quotient, think of EQ, emotional quotient, emotional intelligence as the thing, and you've got to build it up. Some people are born naturally with it, with that caring element. But when you think about empathy in the emotional intelligence space, you're really talking about how it impacts your communication, your how do I interact and how do I build trust? How do I promote positive relationships? How do I respond in a positive way? Because empathy is feeling with someone. It's not that I feel sorry or yeah, it must be tough. I'll get on with my life. Sympathy is, we have a place for sympathy, but sometimes what we need, especially in the workplace, is just feeling with someone, feeling a little bit more. And that's where empathy comes into play.
Thank you. And you brought IQ and EQ into the conversation there. So what's the difference between the two?
IQ, when we talk about intelligence quotient, is, you've probably seen the Mensa puzzles, and it's potentially the level of intelligence that you have as a human being. Now, you could have very great problem solving skills, and not have a Mensa a score of genius. It's not intelligence is typically earned. It's persevered at. I go out and I educate myself and I build myself up very much from an early age, or just the neurons that fire in my brain are automatically switching me on to do different things. So we for the most part we can influence our intelligence. We can build on it. We can learn on how that we interact in an intelligent way. But again, intelligence, and we have to examine what that means, especially when we talk about government intelligence or anything of that ilk. And when we think of emotional intelligence, exactly the same thing. Some people are born to be carers. Their empathy level, it overwhelms them almost. The pain that they feel when they see someone else in trouble, someone else in pain, it can impact people physically. And, that overabundance of empathy. What this is emotionals. It's emotions that you're feeling. It's a release of hormones. It's a tilt within our emotional feelings effectively. So when we think about emotional quotient, we have to build that up as well. We have to build in resilience. We have to build in that knowledge that it's okay for someone to be in pain, and as long as I can understand or feel what it might be like for them, and to measure that, because we sometimes, if you've got a very high EQ, if you feel very emotional about other people's pains, you have to put coping strategies in yourself to not feel that level of overwhelm, to not burst into tears every time you see an individual on the news that's gone through trauma. So it can work both ways. In fact, we need to look after our emotions and our level of empathy, or we need to maybe build on it and work on it more.
Thank you. And how can, just switching now to the workplace, and how can emotional intelligence help improve leadership?
Well, when we think about, and I think you said it right at the beginning, communication. Okay, as a leader, we need to communicate clearly. We need to communicate the vision, the drive of the industry, of the organization that you're working with. We need to listen as leaders, our biggest skill is listening. And you've heard Simon Sinek talk about it, active listening, being present when someone is talking to you, whether it's your direct reports or it's the new starter, the junior guy into the junior person into the office. It's about that active listening, being present when you're talking to someone. But as leaders, what we also have to do is build trust. And we build trust by, I guess what, developing empathy and understanding with our staff. We have to be, as leaders, really good conflict resolutors. We have to resolve conflicts, and we also have to think differently. And that's an odd sort of concept when we think about leaderships and obviously emotions. But actually, when you tap in to your empathy, your empathetic side, what you're really doing is you're considering other people's viewpoints, other people's experiences. And then if you make decisions as a leader based on those diverse thought processes that are coming from every corner of your team, well, what that encourages is positive work culture. And when you think about a leader within a positive work culture, what does that feel like? Well, it feels more supportive. The work environment's more positive. Team members feel comfortable. They share their ideas. They're not going to be beaten up. They're not going to be shot down in flames. They feel included.
Thank you. And you mentioned Simon Sinek there, and I think it was him that said leadership is not about being in charge, it's about taking care of those in your charge.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. He's an incredible individual. And, I think the best leaders are at the front and at the back. And they're also alongside you. So they're helping you along the way, and they're making sure you don't fall behind. But actually, they're also at the front waving the flag and say, come on, follow me. I've got you on this.
Thank you.
We know our community, but we don't know yours yet. Why not share the benefits of your UK&I Sub membership with those who don't know about us? The UK&I Sub referral scheme rewards you for helping to grow and develop our community. You can check out the link in the description to find out more about how you can get involved. Terms and conditions apply. We hope you enjoy the rest of the podcast.
And just switching now then to, okay, we talked about leaders, and what about from an employee perspective? What can you or I or other employees, what strategies can we use to regulate our own emotions, even when faced with, say, difficult conversations or situations that perhaps we're dreading?
Well, again, let's break this down. Let's break down, emotional quotient. Let's break down that emotional intelligence. And when we think about self-awareness is the first most important one. I'm recognizing that I'm having an emotion. I'm recognizing why I might trigger that emotion. And actually, once I've triggered and accepted that emotion is entering my life, then I can start to put some management in. So, immediately I feel myself, and let's go back to your car analogy. I've left a lovely gap between me and the car in front. I'm safe and content in my world. And then someone, probably in an Audi or a BMW, will pull in to that other car makes are available. We'll pull into that space, and immediately that triggers a response. Okay, it triggers a response of "How very dare you," or other words to that effect. You then feel the need to drive a little bit closer, because I'm going to be intimidating now because you've upset me. All of that happens in a heartbeat, in an instant, because what we're really triggering at that point is our very survival instincts: fight, flight, and freeze. I'm not going to stand for that. I'm going to fight. I'm going to allow my anger and my emotional rage to take over on the road rage. But actually, in that split second, that self-awareness is the most important thing. Kicks in, goes, actually, I'm not going to get angry. I don't know why they're doing that, but ho-hum, it's there. I'll just pull back a little bit further. It's that self-awareness that actually is one of the key things that any individual can learn as well. And then you've learned the awareness, but now you've got the regulation. So what I want to do now is actually, I need to control that negative emotion. Big deep breath in. Oh, close my eyes. Don't do this if you're driving. Big deep breath in. Relax the shoulders. Go and just calm yourself down. And maybe if that doesn't immediately work, just take a break. You know, if you're finding this rage coming upon you when you're in the, you're handling a ton beast in the machine, pull over, pull into the parking spot, give yourself a moment to walk around the car, relax, chill out, and then get back in the car. There might be times that you're in a rush and you're in a hurry as well, and you might do the same thing to someone else. It's like pay it forward, pay that kindness forward. And then obviously what we do is just understand and be educated about what empathy actually means. Why is someone doing that? What is their reasons behind it? And actually, can I take that? Can I communicate differently with them? Can I collaborate differently with them? And again, from a work perspective, you know that a lot of these skills that we develop very much associated with relationships and the rest of the greater thing that's going on around us. Recognizing ourselves and then maybe recognizing others and educate.
Thank you. And just switching it back up again. So as a leader in an organisation, we see potentially, hopefully, we see these things that are happening to our employees. As a leader, what steps can be taken to ensure that a team's emotional and mental health needs are being supported?
Well, let's take this out of the leaders' hands, Craig. Let's put this in the manager's hands. Let's put it in the team lead's hands. Let's put it in your colleagues' hands, okay? Mm-hmm. Because yes, of course, leaders need to demonstrate this, but actually the whole company does, the organisation does. And when you think about the best way to support emotional intelligence, when to support emotional needs, we're talking about discussions. Openly discuss mental health. Make it a topic that is not taboo. If you as a leader have had a mental ill health episode in your life, I talk very openly about my depression. Talk about it. Make it normal. Normalize it. Horrible word, but make it acceptable. As a leader, as a manager, encourage regular check-ins. Reach out to your team as often as you are able to. Foster that supportive work environment, whether that's by rolling out mental health first aid training, well-being training, mindfulness practices. Create a supportive environment. Provide access to resources. Sign up to an employee assistance program. Put loads of resources up on the internet. Demonstrate your empathy as a company leader. Demonstrate that you are thinking about other people. Instigate duvet days. Normalize those conversations whereby, do you know what, I just can't come in today. That's fine. As long as you're told, because what I don't want you to do is lie to me. I don't want you to say you've got a bad back or a leg issue. I want you to tell me that you're struggling. And we can only do that by leading. And by leading, I don't mean as a leader, but by leading, by taking that forward. And we do that by prioritizing our own well-being. We put our own oxygen masks on. Leaders, don't do 12-hour days. Leaders, don't stay in the office till look after yourself. If your staff seeing you look after yourself, they'll start to look after themselves.
And you mentioned resilience earlier, as well as a key aspect of what emotional intelligence can help develop. So what role does emotional intelligence play in developing resilience within teams? And if we take for instance a challenging project or times of change, how does it help?
Well, when you as an individual, and again, this is it's all very well, Craig, give your team emotional intelligence. You can't do that. This is a self-driven element. So when we think about that, let's think about a team, a close core team that is in a supported environment. It's a positive culture, and those team members themselves start to harness or adopt higher levels of emotional intelligence. Well, what do they start to do? Well, the first thing is they will start to interpret unspoken cues. They'll start to read through the unwritten rules of an organization. They'll start to see things in their colleagues and in themselves that they might have missed before. Why is someone reacting? Why is someone being triggered by that particular thing? If we start to develop that, we start to develop trust. We start to develop a closer collaboration. So team members, by being highly developed in emotional quotient, will give you a different viewpoint. Do you remember we talked about viewpoints earlier? There was a study actually during COVID. I think it was published by the Harvard Business Report, and they studied companies with known high EQ. They'd gone through intelligence quotient training, and they were found to be 60% more effective at problem solving. We've got COVID coming along. How are we going to do this? What's best for our organization? And those companies that have invested in emotional well-being training, emotional intelligence awareness elements within their organization, created positive environment, 60% better at solving problems. I think that stat alone should encourage anyone to look at how they're dealing with their own emotions.
Wow. So is that because of the improved cohesiveness of the team, because they were more self-aware of themselves and aware of their colleagues?
Exactly it. What was happening was there was a greater level of trust, a greater level of communication, listening to different ideas and different viewpoints. The employees themselves, they probably felt more valued. They felt heard. And think about what this is all driving towards, Craig. When we think about both mental ill health issues in the workplace, neurodiverse differences, the key things that are the biggest issues for organizations is absenteeism, staff turnover, lack of engagement, presenteeism. So what we're doing here is we're not encouraging, we're enabling people to be heard, to communicate, to feel safe in the workplace. This will reduce the turnover. This will reduce having to take days off because I'm not feeling very well. And we will engage employees. 30% productivity increase in a positive work environment, 60% better at solving problems that might come along because you understand yourself, but you're understanding others as well.
Fantastic. So all positive there then, and something we should really look at from an organisational and improvement perspective on building that into. There's so many different things, isn't there? The motivational sessions, team building sessions, and perhaps this is something that is perhaps overlooked. That emotional quotient, if you like, training as well.
It is, and think what you're doing. Okay, where you're enabling people to understand themselves better. You're enabling people to understand their colleagues better. You're improving the work environment. You're encouraging a healthy lifestyle, a healthy communication practice. You're recognizing mental health issues exist. Your understanding around mental illness increases. You're motivating your staff. You're ensuring support is available. You're offering those, as you say, those wellbeing trainers, mentorships, whatever that looks like. And whoa, you're increasing communication. You're increasing the effectiveness of your team. You're allowing individuals to have empathy, not only with themselves, with others, with your suppliers, with your competitors. We're fostering an awareness of being kind to each other's. And as we do that, and as we enable staff, well, they're going to think innovatively. They're going to think differently, and you're fostering an environment that is going to allow that to happen. And I think that's the best thing you can do in a culture.
Fantastic, thank you. And as we come towards a close now, Simon, is there anything perhaps that we haven't touched on that you'd like to share around EQ?
It's probably a little bit what we haven't used the word yet as well, and I deliberately didn't use it because it's a word that's quite heavily used in the whole diversity and inclusion. But it's so important, but I think it gets swept under the carpet or gets overlooked, and that's psychological safety. Psychological safety is that feeling that I can be whoever I am, whatever I want to be, and I can bring that into work through no fear of discrimination, stigma, or being, bullied or frowned upon. I can make contributions. I can make decisions. I can feel valued as part of a team, and my contributions won't be laughed at. My contributions, because as soon as we do that, as soon as there's a feeling of bullying, as soon as there's a feeling of, well, your ideas aren't very good, then I'll shut down. And what I'll do is I'll take me away from the job, which means you get a hollow shell. And I'll just pen all my emotion up and I'll take it home because I can't spread it out here. I can't be me. In the same way as we're stopping someone with glasses wearing glasses. Oh, you can't wear your hearing aids. You just have to not hear. You can't be gay. You can't be who you want to be. There would be uproar if we instilled those. So why don't we let people be who they are and what drives them, and learn how to support them and make those reasonable adjustments rather than deride them and not listen to them. So psychological safety, I think, put it at the heart of everything you do. Make your workplace a welcoming place.
Simon, thank you. Thank you very much for your time, for your insights. Absolutely fantastic talking to you about this important subject. And to our listeners, thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and found it valuable. Please make sure you do hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes. And until the next time, stay safe, stay well, and stay positive.